The house was too damn quiet ever since. Finally, we signed the divorce papers. Spring. The walls seemed to soak up every sound, leaving nothing but a hollow hum. I'd walk through the living room, past the faded couch where Mark and I used to binge The Office, and feel the absence. Like a bruise at night, it was worse, the silence pressed down heavy as a quilt, and I'd lie awake counting the ticks of the kitchen clock. Some nights I left the TV on, tuned to late-night talk shows to hear voices that weren't mine. I'm Emily Harper, 45, a graphic designer who used to dream of painting murals, but now settle for corporate logos. My life wasn't supposed to feel this empty. The kids were grown, Noah at college, and Sophie off, chasing her dreams in Seattle. The house in our sleepy Ohio suburb, with its creaky floors and chipped porch paint, was all I had left. I'd pour myself a glass of cheap Merlot, sit at the kitchen counter and scroll through X posts about other people's perfect lives. It wasn't jealousy, not exactly what it was longing for, touch for laughter, for someone to notice. I was still here. I told myself I was. Fine, I wasn't. The night stretched longer, and the quiet started to feel like a guest who wouldn't leave. I wasn't expecting Noah. He wasn't due back from Ohio State until Thanksgiving, but that afternoon, I heard the front door creak, and his familiar mum, "You're home, my heart," did a little flip, the kind it hadn't done in months. There he was, taller than. I remembered his broad shoulders filling the doorway, a duffel bag slung over one arm, his brown eyes, soft like his dad's, but kinder caught mine, and his smile broke something open in me. "Surprise," he said, dropping his bag and pulling me into a hug. He smelled like laundry, detergent, and faint cologne, and I held longer than I meant to. Noah was 20, sophomore studying engineering, but he still had that gentle way about him. Like, he could sense when you were hurting. Said finals were killing him. His roommates were loud, and he just needed a break. Plus, "I missed your cooking," teased, grabbing a granola bar from the pantry. I laughed. The sound foreign in my throughout. His presence filled the house. Like a sudden burst of light, and for the first time in weeks, I didn't feel like I was drowning in silence. I didn't say it out loud, but I was grateful desperately. So that first evening we slipped into an easy rhythm, like he'd never left. I made spaghetti, the kind with the sauce, hell-loved, and he sat at the counter telling me about his coding projects, and a professor who sounded like a drill sergeant. His laugh was warm and unguarded, and I caught myself smiling more than I had in months. After dinner, he insisted on doing the dishes, his sleeves rolled up, humming some indie song I didn't know. Ended up on the couch watching Netflix, comedy flickering on the screen. But we talked more than we watched. He asked about my work and my days, and I dodged the truth, not wanting to admit how small my world had become. There was a moment, fleeting, when he looked at me, really looked, and said, "You seem tired, Mom." His voice was soft, not accusing, but it hit like a dart. I brushed it off, but my chest tightened as we said goodnight. His hand brushed mine just for a second, and I felt a warmth I hadn't realized I'd been missing. It was nothing, I told myself, just a son being kind. But the house didn't feel so quiet anymore. Noah's presence wove itself into the house, like a thread I hadn't realized was missing. Mornings became rituals for me, flipping pancakes while he brewed coffee, the kitchen filling with the hiss of the machine, and his off-key humming. I'd catch him stealing a strip of bacon, grinning like he was 10 again, and I'd swat his hand laughing. It felt like a memory I'd forgotten. How to live evenings. We'd cook together, chopping onions, stirring sauces, the clink of dishes grounding us. He'd take over the dishes without being asked, his broad hands scrubbing pots, while he told me about a frat party that got out of hand or a girl he didn't quite like. Back, I'd listen, nodding, but my eyes lingered on the way his shoulders moved, steady. And sure, it wasn't just their routine. It was the ease of it, the way we filled each other's silences one night. He handed me a plate of lasagna, fingers brushing mine, and said, "You make this house feels like home, Mom." His voice was low, almost reverent, and I felt a warmth blooms in my chest, unbidden. Too. Told myself it was just gratitude, but the air felt heavier, like we were sharing something. We hadn't named the shift was subtle, like a shadow moving across a room you don't notice until it's there. Noah started lingering, sitting closer on the couch, his knee grazing mine during a movie. I'd feel the heat of it, tell myself to shift away, but I didn't hear his compliments come softly. Unexpectedly, "You look nice today," he'd say when I threw on a blouse for a Zoom meeting, or "That necklace suits you." I'd laugh and wave it off, but my pulse quickened. I started noticing things too. How his eyes crinkled when he smiled, how his voice softened when he spoke to me. One evening I was stirring soup, humming an old Fleetwood Mac song, and he leaned against the counter watching. "You're always so pretty when you're cooking," he said, teasing, but not quite my spoon. I froze mid-stir. I wanted to laugh to keep it light, but my throat caught. I mumbled something about needing more salt, and I turned away, my cheeks burning at night. Alone in my room, I'd replayed those moments, dissecting them. Was I imagining it was I who was so starved for attention that I was twisting his kindness into something else? But then I'd catch him watching me, when I tucked my hair behind my ear or laughed too loud, and his gaze wasn't sun. It was steadily curious and warm. I hated it, how it made me feel, seen, wanted, alive. I hated how I didn't want it to stop. It was late, the kind of night where the house creaked, and the world felt it too. Still, I'd fallen asleep on the couch, half-empty glass of wine on the table. The TV is looping Netflix's "Are You Still Watching" prompt. I stirred groggily, sensing movement. My eyes stayed closed, heavy with sleep, but I felt the couch dip. Beside me, Noah's breathing was soft, deliberate, like he was trying not to wake me. I should have opened my eyes, said something, but I didn't. I lay there, heart picking up speed as his hand hovered near mine, not touching, just close enough for me to feel the warmth. It lingered, a ghost of contact, and I swear I stopped breathing the moment. Stretched, fragile, loaded, I told myself. It was innocent, a son checking on his mother, but my body knew better. Fingers twitched, wanting to close the gap, but I stayed still, paralyzed by what it would mean when I finally opened my eyes. He was gone, the couch empty, the TV still glowing. I sat up, my pulse hammering, and stared at my hand like it belonged to someone else. The next morning, Noah was in the kitchen, pouring cereal, his smile as easy as ever. "Sleep okay?" he asked, and I nodded, my voice stuck. I wanted to believe I dreamed it, but the warmth of his almost touch clung to me, undeniable, and I didn't know how to look at him without wondering, what next? Came the days that blurred into a rhythm that felt both safe and dangerous. Noah's presence was a constant, now his gestures. Growing bolder, though never overt, he'd brush past me in the kitchen, his hand grazing the small of my back, lingering just a second too long. I'd catch my breath, telling myself it was nothing, but my body hummed with awareness. One evening, I slipped on earrings for a rare client dinner. He leaned against my bedroom doorframe, watching. "You look beautiful, Mom," he said, his voice soft, no trace of teasing, I froze my fingers, fumbling with the clasp, and managed a weak smile. "Thanks, kid," I mumbled, but his eyes held mine in the mirror steady. And unreadable, I started responding in ways I wasn't proud of, wearing my hair down because he'd commented on it choosing sweaters that hugged my frame. Stupid things I told myself. But they weren't. At night, we'd sit on the couch, blanket draped over us, his arm resting behind me, close enough to feel his warmth. I didn't pull away. I didn't want to. To his laughter, his quiet, "You're amazing." You know that when I told a story, it was like water after years of drought. I was drowning in it, and I didn't care. Every moment with Noah felt like standing on a cliff's edge, knowing one step could ruin. Every night I'd lie awake, my mind a war zone. This was wrong. Every instinct screamed it. He was my son, my Noah, the boy I'd bandaged knees for, read bedtime stories to put the man in my house. Now wasn't that boy someone who saw me not as a mother, but as Emily, flawed, lonely, starving for something I'd forgotten how to name? I hated myself for noticing his hands strong and careful, or the way his voice dropped when he spoke to me. I'd catch myself in the mirror, searching for the woman he saw and felt. Rush of shame. Was I that desperate, that broken? I tried to pull back, busying myself with work, avoiding long conversations, but it only made the ache worse. One afternoon I was folding laundry, and he came up behind me, resting his chin on my shoulder. "Are you okay, Mom? You've been quiet." His breath was warm, against my neck, and I froze my hands, trembling around a t-shirt. I wanted to lean into him just for a second, to feel something other than guilt. Instead, I stepped away, mumbling about deadlines, but the truth clawed at me. I wasn't just afraid of what he felt, I was afraid of what I wanted was to spend years invisible, unloved, and Noah's gaze, tender, unwavering, was a mirror, showing me someone I hadn't seen in decades. Didn't know how to stop looking at it. Happened on a Friday night, the kind of quiet evening where the world felt suspended. I'd had a glass of wine, my the guard softened, and we were on the couch, a half-watched movie flickering. Noah was close, his knee pressed against mine, his, with my arm draped lazily behind me. The air felt thick, charged, like we were both waiting for something to break. He turned to me, his eyes sear,